Okay. So, good evening once again. We thank God for how far He has brought us, and today is our second meeting ever since we started our classes, and we will continue right from where we ended the last time because we have a lot to cover, a lot to cover. So, and your semester is almost coming to an end, so we need to wrap up real quick so that we can at least do a revision and look at one or two questions before your examination. Right. So please, if you want to talk, you raise your hands and I'll call you to speak. If not, please let your mic still be muted. I beg you. Okay, so the in our previous meeting we discussed the political institution, we discussed the religious institution, and hopefully today we will look at the educational institution as a whole, and we looked at the social significance of the political institution, the importance of the political institution, and we made mention of the fact that the political institution is basically an institution that helps to meet our need of orderliness or law and order. So the political institution is just there to meet our needs as human beings. And one of the needs is to help maintain law and order in our society. And we also made mention of the fact that the political institution also serves as or play an evaluation role, or it also plays a monitoring role on the other social institutions, right? And yesterday, previous in our previous meeting, we also discussed the religious institution, and we looked at the various theories, trying to explain the inception of religion. Right? We looked at the definition, the various definition by the various founding fathers of the discipline. We looked at the discipline of Emil Durkheim, and where we explained the the definition to the core, right? So today we are going to continue right away from witchcraft accusation. That is where we ended, right? Yeah, that is where we ended witchcraft accusation. So today we discussed that sociologists are interested in, in the study of religion and everything, not necessarily to prove or disprove the existence of God. However, sociologists are interested in the study of religion because, number one, people who are considered social beings believe in God, or they have their beliefs in religion, and as such, the need for sociologists to study how these belief system affect the way these people behave and relate with one another in the society. Right? And we spoke about ancestral worship. We spoke about the the differences between witchcraft, sorcery, and magic, of which in our next, as we are going on, we will take some time to expand it and for us to know the various distinctions between witchcraft, magic, and sorcery. So let's just dive deeper into the witchcraft accusation. So Evans Pritchard, right? He is saying that jealousy, hatred, and envy and fear are the basis of witchcraft accusation. So, as I said, sociologists, we are not necessarily interested in finding out whether they are witches, they are wizards, or they are magicians, or they are sorcerers, or whatever that you can think of. All that we are interested is the sociological significance of all these beliefs in the lives of the people who find themselves in our society. That is the reason why we are actually studying all these things. And so Evans Pritchard, he's saying that jealousy, hatred, envy, and fear are the basis of witchcraft accusations. So he is actually looking at the fact that in our society, you one way or the other hear that, oh, someone will say that this person is a witch. A daughter-in-law will go and see a priest, a pastor, an imam, or whatever, and the person will tell you that you are barren because your mother, your grandfather, your mother-in-law, your father-in-law is the one behind. And so Evans Pritchard is saying that all these accusations is centered on the fact that people are jealous of one another, hatred, just the fact that somebody hates you, the person can term you a witch and accuse you to be a witch because maybe you've put up some behavior that the person actually is not expecting you to put up that kind of behavior, and as such, you are going to be labeled as a witch. Right? And the fear, in a typical Ghanaian society, you will see that mostly the aged, those people who are 90, 80, 100, thereabout, sometimes we have this fear that these people may be rich, or they may be riches, and they may be riches. You understand? But it's just the person, it's just the fact that the person is aging and all that. But when you are young and let's say a grandmother or an old lady you don't know somewhere calls you and gives you a gift, either a toffee or something, you yourself you'll be shaking. You may not even take it because some way somehow your mother has even told you that do not take toffee from anybody, or do not, when you see any old woman that calls you that come and take toffee, don't, because the person may be a witch. So the fear of the fact that a minute. Okay, sorry, and sorry for the interruption. I understand. So that is the main reason why, or the main reasons that Evans Pritchard he pointed out could be the basis upon which people accuse one another as whether the person is a witch or whatever. So also witches do not attack strangers, but rather those whom they have some social relationship with. And so you also see that you can't just see any stranger sometimes and just label the person as a witch. You may be even amongst your friends, one way or the other, just a slip of tongue. The person may put up some particular behavior, and you say that, oh, this person is a witch. You just, without hesitation, just label the person as a witch. Why? Because you have that kind of cordial relationship with the person. You've been with the person, you've been familiar with the person, and you've seen that this person has been putting up a particular habit ever since you met the person, and sometimes it baffles your mind and you just label the person as a witch. And so you see that people that you're closer to, that is from Evans Pritchard, people who normally fall victims to witchcraft accusation are those who we have some level of relationship with. And ritual accusations are frequent among kinsfolks, affines, friends, and neighbors, just as I mentioned. It is therefore not uncommon to find a wife to accuse her mother-in-law for her barrenness. I mentioned that if your mother-in-law has been coming to your maternal home every day, your matrimonial home, sorry, every day, and here's a situation, you and your husband, you are finding it difficulty to even conceive, or sort of you're having some miscarriages and all that. There's therefore that tendency for you to even think that probably your mother-in-law knows something about it. You understand? There was this story that I heard that there was this woman who was having this sickness, and then she was trying very hard to cure. And even her mother has been the one that has been supporting her, finding her places to help her cure that particular sickness, not knowing that it was the mother that was behind everything. But the mother was actually helping the lady, making it seem as if she cares, just to get rid of any suspicion or whatsoever. So the mother was actually helping the lady. So that if the lady hear of any, let's say any pastor somewhere, the mother will, will follow the lady and assist her. You see that this woman is actually showing love, but the person is actually the one behind. And as and before will say something like Abu Bakr will know through to me. You understand? So these witchcraft accusations are sort of they emanate as and when we relate with one another, because we see some sort of behaviors that we have labeled those behaviors as behaviors that is only a witch that can put up. Then when you see the person doing or putting up that kind of behavior, automatically you see the person as a witch. You understand? So there are some behaviors that in our African society, we have labeled as characteristics of a witch. You understand? And let's look at the fact that if there are some behaviors that we have labeled as characteristics of, let's say, somebody who is a witch, it serves as some level of social control, because you wouldn't want to be labeled a witch. And so you try as much as possible to tame your behavior, to shape your behavior, not to be labeled as a witch. So witchcraft accusation serves or promotes social control. And you see the point, the promotion of social control, you will realize that it runs almost through all the social institutions. When we were learning political institution, you saw that how political institution ensures that the behavior of the individual are put in check. You looked at the religious institution, you realize that that one too, the behavior of the individual is put in check. And when we also get to socialization, or that is educational institution, you also realize that there's some level of social control that comes from socialization. You understand? So if you're going to forget any point, cry, I beg, don't forget it promotes social control. If you are going to forget any importance of any of the social institutions, you shouldn't forget social control, because it runs through almost all of them. So let's look at the perceived characteristics of a witch. So some outward characteristics are associated with alleged witches, such as very old women. I mentioned that with some physical defects like toothless. You say that this woman or this woman has used her teeth to chew human beings. So right now the person is toothless. You understand? And a red-eyed person, all these things can be scientifically proven that if you are somebody who is a red-eyed person, it's either you're having some disorder. But in our African context, when we look at that, we see that no, this is something that is relating to somebody who could be a witch. You understand? Quarrelsome person. There are some of your friends that you see that this person, no, this person is very quarrelsome. Just the small thing, the person will escalate it and make it a big deal. So I think by the end of this class, a lot of us will know our position, whether we are witches or not. I beg you. So if you have any question, you can let me know so that I will give you the clarification. Please, is there any question? Is there any question? Is there any question? Okay. Since nobody is minding me, means that there is no question, so we can continue. Oh, Dell. Who is Dell? Your name is Dell? Okay, so you can Del, you can unmute. Del, please, you can unmute and talk.
Hello.
Yeah,
Please, good evening.
good evening.
Um, please, my question is, so are you trying to say that in the traditional society, when we say someone is a witch, like what we perceive to know today, that the person is possessed with an evil spirit that has some magical powers or something, that's not how they used to see or what?
Okay, okay. All right. So, if I get your question well, you are not looking at you are taking it from the spiritual point of view, right?
Yes, please.
Okay, okay, that's fine. So just as I mentioned, thank you very much. That's a very nice question. Right. So just as I
Okay.
said, from the views of Ivan spirituality, he was looking at witchcraft from the angle of our social relations. You understand? And so just by some attitudes that you are going to put on, you are going to label you as a witch. Not necessarily, let's say we've seen you display some metaphysical attribute, or we've seen you doing, you know, causing someone's head to be cut off and bending someone's head or whatever that you can think of, or setting someone ablaze. But he was looking at it from the relational aspect of it. You understand? That you can see that this person, because of this characteristics or this attitude the person is putting up, this person could be labeled as a witch. And you know that when you are labeled as a witch, it means that you know witches. One thing about witches is that the end game, the end game is to do somebody harm. You understand? The end game. So if you are putting up some attitude, right, that sociologically we perceive that particular attitude as an attitude that relates with somebody that is a witch, at the end of the day, you're going to be labeled as a witch. And that is what Ivan Spechard is trying to let us understand. Even when you look at from the first slides that we read, that he was looking at it from the fact that witchcraft accusation is frequent among king's folks, affines, friends, and neighbors. So it's only between people who you have that kind of proximity or that kind of relationship with. Like when you see them put up that kind of behavior, then you are going to label them as witches and wizards or whatever that you may term them, you understand? So not necessarily looking at these characters, not necessarily that you've seen the person display some metaphysical behavior or the person is conjuring something or whatever. But just the mere look at these characteristics, these behaviors, just looking at the person perform such or performing such behaviors, you automatically term the person as the person is a witch. I don't know whether your question is answered.
Yes, please.
Okay. All right. All right. Is there any other question? All right. Thank you very much. Okay, so witchcraft and beliefs associated with it serves as a means of social control. I mentioned that. Number one, this is because when you know that these characteristics and behavior patterns or behavioral patterns associated with the witches, people would be expected to avoid such behavior so they are not labeled as witches. I mentioned that. Yeah. And the fear of being bewitched would force people to curb their excessive behaviors that might incur the displeasure of witches and their possible attacks. You know, when or the a curse without any basis is null and void. You understand? And so just the fear that you don't want anybody to bewitch you, you try as much as possible to put your behavior in line in order not to offend anybody for the person to bewitch you. So it serves as a means of social control. So in traditional societies, there is close connection between religion and political organization. I remember I mentioned this in our last meeting when I used Otunfo as an example, that you see that he was performing some roles, even though he is a political leader in the political institution, but the political institution is some way is formed in a way that it is mostly difficult to disassociate the political institution itself from their religious significance. You understand? And this will actually take us to what we call the divine kings and the divine right of kings. And when we get to that slide, we are going to explain that. So is you will see that some kings, in as much as they make laws, they make sure that there's law and order in the society, they settle disputes and all that. They make sure that properties are being shared properly in an equitable manner. They also have some religious roles that they play. Some even go as far as pouring libation, giving out sacrifices to the gods on behalf of the of the of the people. You understand? And so you would realize that the religious significance of the kings or the political leaders in our traditional society actually deepens and makes their political significance more accepted by the people. For example, if you know that this person is actually called by the gods, this person has been instituted by the gods, and any disobedience or any rebellion against these people, you are going to incur the wrath of the gods. You will try as much as possible to give them the necessary or accord them the necessary respect that they deserve. And so, because of the religious significance that these people have, man, it sort of make. Oh, my voice is low. Please, can you hear me now? Is it better? Okay. All right. So because of this religious significance that these people have, right, it's sort of established and legitimized their political leadership. Right? It makes the people okay, all right, that can be heard now. So it makes the people sort of revere and fear them. You understand? Yeah. So Redcliffe Brown maintains that in Africa, it is often hardly possible to separate political office from ritual or religious office, as the king is the legislature, judge, commander-in-chief, and chief priest. You understand? So the chief's religious and ritual duties and functions help to enhance his secular position. That is what I mentioned. That you dare not try to rebel against the chief. Either than that, you are going to incur the wrath of the gods. Right? So the chief is expected to observe certain taboos to maintain a state of spiritual purity. So hardly, even in Aganebo, they would you see Otunfo Ozetutu, like the Asante in a restaurant in Ghana or buying food on the street. No. No, it's hardly. And all those are religious, there are certain taboos that they put in place in order to enhance and legitimize their secular position. That is their political office that they hold. Oh, is it my connection? Oh, please, can you unmute and talk to me, Victor? Yeah, Victor, can you hear me?
Yes, hello.
Yeah. Am I being
Please,
heard?
yes, I can hear you loud and clear, but I'm telling the one typing that The one who says she can't hear you, I was telling her to check her connection
Check your
because you
connection.
are audible.
Oh, okay, okay, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. All right, thank you very much. Right. So the chief's religious and ritual duties and functions help to enhance. I've mentioned that. Yeah. So, for instance, the Akan chief is forbidden to walk alone, eat in public, or see a dead body. So, those are the religious, the rituals that the certain taboos that the chief is expected to keep up in order to maintain a state of spiritual purity. And you will see that whatever that we are discussing here right now, you will see the definition of Emil Durkheim, his definition of religion. You will see all those things running through them, right? Things that are the profane things and things that are believed to be sacred. You understand? So you see all those things. That is how we learn sociology. So as and when you're progressing, you try to look at the various theories, the various definitions that the founding fathers they gave. You try to see whether you can get some level of understanding from that particular definition that they brought. You understand? So let's continue. All right. So as I mentioned earlier, I spoke about the fact that uh, the religious significance of the political leaders or the kings in our African traditional society uh, will lead us to what we call the divine kingship and divine right of kings. Right. So when we're talking about the divine kingship, we are basically talking about the fact that the king himself, his body, right, is the temple of the gods. So the king inhabits the gods. So the gods are in the chief, the gods are in the king. And as such, the king is supposed to be revered as they revere the gods. Because if the gods are in the king, it means that technically, if you are paying tribute to the king directly, you are also worshiping the gods. And so any rebellion against the kings is a rebellion against the gods, which would, in the long run, attract the disciplines and the sanctions of the gods. You understand? So the chief spiritual beauty is explained by the theory of divine kingship developed by James Fraser. Right? So according to him, most chiefs are not just rulers of people, but their bodies contain gods. So the gods will die when people in whose body they reside die or become sick. You understand? And so if you are a king and you show some sign of weakness, if this sickness, you know that no, if you don't take care, this sickness might lead to your death. Because it is believed that your body inhabits the gods. We are not going to allow you to die a natural death. No, 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 no. We are not going to allow you to die a natural death. You are going to be put to death. And in the process of you being put to death, they perform some rituals to transfer the gods from you to somebody who is well fit and enabled to inhabit the gods. Then the person now becomes the next ruler. So that is the idea of divine kingship. So in divine kingship, the king himself is considered as divine because the king inhabits, right? The inhabits what? The gods. You understand? So the king himself is considered as divine. But when you talk about divine right of kings, it means that there's some level of power, there's some level of rights that has been conferred on the king, right, to perform or to perform some intermediary role between the people and the gods. And so with the divine kingship, the gods inhabits the king. But with the divine right of king, there is some sort of delegation of power and authority to the king to act in that position as a ruler and also a spiritual leader. And so with the two, any rebellion against a king that has a divine right is a rebellion against the gods, and it attracts the wrath and the punishment of the gods. So it is necessary for the king to be in a good state of health since his death or illness is a disaster, as I mentioned that. So as a result, the king is not allowed to fall sick or show any sign of weakness which might cause his death. So rather, when he falls sick or gets weak, he is put to death, and the god in his body ritually transferred to a body of a stronger and a healthier man. So it is believed that this will save both the gods and the community. So in many traditional societies, the king is among the strongest, healthiest, and most handsome. So he is kept in good health, with the wives tasked to report any sign of failing health to the people. So some aspects of this theory are associated with the chieftaincy in Ghana, especially the concern about ritual purity of the king, taboos and secrecy about his health and death. You understand? So even the wives of the king says as those who monitor the king that if they see any sign that this king will not have a foreseeable future, because the gods are in the king, they will not allow you to die. They will put you to death. You understand? And sorry, and the gods will be ritually transferred from your body to a stronger body, who will therefore become the next king or the next chief in the society. And the divine kingship, I've already explained that. So divine kingship holds that the king himself is a god, or accurately possesses God in his body, as among the vandals or the chief vandal not being seen. So divine right of king holds that kings have authority independently of their subjects. And that authority to rule comes from the gods, and the subject cannot challenge it. So, in other ways, divine kingship and divine right of kings, you dare not challenge the king. Whichever way, the king has the authority of the gods, and so any rebellion against them is a rebellion against the gods. And let's come to the educational institution. You will see that why is it that there are certain things that the issue is that who even taught you that? How did you even come to know that when you wake up every morning you're supposed to brush your teeth? How did you come to know? There was a time I was actually asking myself, like, so who actually brought this? That every morning you have to brush your teeth. You have to eat 3 square meal a day. You are saying three and you are saying square. Isn't three a triangle? You are saying 3 square meal. All these are socialization. So we are talking about educational institution. The educational institution is there to serve the need of socialization, to socialize us, to equip us with a status quo. So educational institution is bent on maintaining the status quo. It helps with the transfer of the culture from one generation, that is the older generation, to the younger generation. And that is socialization. You understand? Whether directly or indirectly. Probably you saw your mother at infancy, you saw your mother brushing her teeth every morning. So you yourself, you picked that up and you started brushing your teeth every morning. And you realize that when you sway from that part, you are considered as a rebel. So I don't know that if there is any of you that when you were a kid, you didn't want to brush your teeth, that your mother had to beat you to brush your teeth. You're considered as a rebel because why is it that you don't want to brush your teeth? You woke up, you have to brush your teeth before you eat. If you don't brush your teeth, you not eat. And those are socialization, right? So the institution of marriage bring people together so that lasting social relationship might be established. Out of this relationship, children are reproduced and families set up in society. So the question then is, having children brought into this world, how do these children become status occupant and role acting personalities? You understand? All these things that we are doing right now, the educational institution, the formal education that you're going through, they are all, to help us become better people in the society. Right? For us to have a sense of belonging, for us to be able to fit in the society that we live in. That if you are not socialized, you will not be able to fit in the society. You become a square peg in the round hole. That you will not be able to fit in it, in the society. And that is the main role that the education institution is supposed to perform. Right? So how do they assume social roles in society? Right? So that is the duty of the educational institution. Now, so the mechanism that is socialized, the mechanism by which individuals is made to become a role player, to fit into the social situations, knowing the norms, rules, regulations of the society they find themselves in, is called the socialization. So the mechanism, the process by which, right, the beliefs, the cultural norms and practices of one of the older generation is being transferred to the younger generation in order to make them better citizens of the society or better members of the society is what we call socialization. And this is mainly done by the educational institution. You and I, we can't see the educational institution, but we can see the educational institution at work. You can see that there's a building over there. That is just a structure of the educational institution. But you can't see the educational institution. It's an abstract something, right? So the process of socialization is a lifelong process and starts from birth to death. So in many traditional societies, there there is transition from one stage of life to the another. So our session will end very soon, of which we are even about to end. So we will start with the next lecture. That is lecture 6 in our next slide. So in many traditional societies, transition from one stage of life to the another is marked by rituals and transmission of skills and knowledge known as the rite of passage. So we look at the rite of passage. You have the naming ceremony. You have the puberty rite. You have the marriage rites. You have the mortuary rite. So with time, you are going to go through all these one by one and understand how naming ceremony is done, puberty rites, something like Dipo and Bravo, how is it being done? The marriage rite. You look at the various bride prices that are being paid. Some are taking cows and all that. You look at mortuary rite. You look at the social significance of it.